is, and because we have been put in a reality that emphasizes that, our societies from the beginning were based upon certain aspects of competition, whether it's for food, procreation, or whatever. It's about power. It's about being more able to succeed at certain things than others. It's a competition. And that really, when you get beyond the need for that, the first thing that humanity will naturally do is move away from competition and toward cooperation. We as a people are meant to be cooperative with one another. We're not meant to struggle, to fight, to play wars with one another and all those other games that have been going on around our planet for the last few millennia. We are actually ending that. We are now in a spiritual renaissance that is bringing our entire planet into a whole new reality, and that reality is one in which we look upon each other as sovereign beings who have basic rights, and that we understand that these basic rights are not to be abused. We have basic responsibilities. We recognize that, and we understand completely, especially when you get into being fully conscious beings, that this whole reality doesn't need to be competitive. What we need to do is to use our collective abilities to create within our societies the best possible series of circumstances to help one another to achieve what their purposes are in each lifetime. And that's something that people on this planet, as they become more conscious, are beginning more and more to understand as a basic aspect of what we really are as quote-unquote humans.
Sheldon, one of the things I've learned over my studies here is that we are all one, and I think quantum mechanics kind of teaches us that. Do the Syrians talk about quantum mechanics at all?
They've kind of gone beyond that to a spiritual science, and that spiritual science is based upon the fact that all energy is infinite and that it can be used by the mind. The mind actually is the most powerful single thing in the entire universe. And when we learn that our minds are really a greater mind that also has the capability in each one of us to act as a being, a unit, we understand that we can operate at two levels, which is the greater oneness mind and the mind of ourselves as an individual. And we begin to see that we can actually move between those two realities very easily. And that's what a fully conscious being does, is understand that they are at one part of this great collective of life that has been set forth by the Creator. And at the second one, they understand they are an individual that has a certain basic part of this great wholeness to live in, to use it so that it can become as fully potentialized as any other aspect of this great wholeness, so that you become able to contribute to whatever is needed to collectively, using our creative abilities, our mind, to make the world, the solar system, the star nation, or the galaxy, and finally all of creation as best as we can possibly make it, or say is good. Probably a better word.
I think it was Erwin Schrödinger that said that entanglement is the property of quantum mechanics that is very, very strange. In other words, all things are connected in some way, and this is the basic truth about the fabric of our reality. And I wonder if you could comment on that, the fact that things are connected in some way.
Well, what we have is a giant morphic field. This morphic field is everything. Morphogenic field, is everything. When you look at the morphogenic field, you see that it has within it all the possibilities to create each one of us. It also has the possibility to allow each one of us to work together collectively to make this field do what is necessary to bring forth, to manifest what is in the mind of the Creator, the divine plan. So we understand that indeed we are entangled with one another, the collective, but we also have this energy, which is who we are, and that it is both, as I said, a part of the greater whole and of who we are at the same time. So we are both a one and we are a oneness. And this is something that sometimes it'll sound like I'm talking with some of the Buddhist stuff, or Sometimes people say it sounds almost like mumbo-jumbo, but it isn't. It's the reality of who and what we are. And when we begin to fully understand all of this, that's why a lot of scientists who initially got into the whole process of understanding quantum wound up turning deeply into Buddhism, because they began to see indeed that there is this oneness, that there is indeed a need for us to operate in creating a greater good, that we have within us a way of the manyfold paths to creating this goodness, and that we have a spiritual ability, our mind, which can change things. So just as quantum understood that experiments that you're observing, that the observer is also taking part in the experiment, in other words, there's no such thing as a neutral observer, everything in the reality affects everything that makes up that reality. So when you're looking at an experiment, it's impossible to separate the watchers from the watched. So the result of all of this is this quantum mechanics, as it moves further and further up in understanding this process of change, learns that there's a thing called consciousness. Consciousness is simply the mind, and the fully potentialized mind is what I call full consciousness. Full consciousness allows you to work as one within the God mind of creation, and at the same time understanding that you are not only a part of this great God mind, but that you have an ability to contribute to what this God mind is doing, which is called a divine plan. And so this is what we are all now looking at. We are kind of like, to once again use the analogy of Buddhism, we are kind of like Buddhist priests sitting in meditation, looking at the universe and asking ourselves one question: how do we react to it? What is its reaction upon us? And what is the result of all of that? And understanding that simply by doing that, the universe is reacting to us and we are reacting to the universe. We do not need to do things in ways that the Western world looks at. We can be in different realities at the same time. We can change things around because we have a mind. This mind can do just about anything. It can make water appear. It can make water that's dirty clean. It can change the energy in water, and we are mostly water. So that means that we can also change our bodies at will. We can move from place to place. This is what, when we're fully conscious, we have an integrated light body. We can move around, and that's why the fastest speed in the universe is not the speed of light, it's the speed of mind. So this is something that the Syrians, from the time I was a little kid, were completely teaching me and talking to me about, so that when I did get into Buddhism, I related more to it than just about any other group of religious philosophies that I encountered.
Sheldon, we have been taught in school that the world is made up of atoms, and atoms make molecules, and molecules make up matter, but atoms are mostly empty. And if the nucleus of a hydrogen atom was scaled up to the size of a basketball, then the associated electron would be 20 miles away. So everything between the nucleus and the electron is empty space. And in that emptiness, there's actually information and massive amounts of energy. It has been said that the latent energy in the vacuum of a single hydrogen atom, there's trillions of times more energy than in, say, 20 billion light years of space. And I wondered if you could comment on the fact that there's this tremendous energy in what we call empty space.
Right. This is what we call zero-point energy. And the field that is created by this zero-point energy, the zero-point field, is what creates what we were just talking about, which is the atom and all the different aspects of it, the nucleus and the electrons that make it up. And then all of this stuff comes together. The atoms form molecules, and the molecules then begin to form into various energies which create elements, which create who we are. Because out of those elements comes the basic acids that create who we are, these basic proteins. So when you look at that, you say, well, what makes all this stuff? What creates it all? And the answer to that is consciousness, the divine will to make something, to create something. This is what is all around us. Now, the energy that is in all of that, and all the living things that make up the entire reality. And, of course, I see the world that we are living in around it, the stars, everything that you see at night. This is really a living, holographic reality. We are living in a field of a great consciousness, and this consciousness, this light consciousness, this spiritual energy is what creates this hologram. And this hologram is what we call our realities. All of these realities, therefore, exist out of a great consciousness. So what we are doing is we are looking at the great divine will and the great divine plan and seeing how we are part of that, and seeing how immense is the energies inside of us. If you would look at all of what a hydrogen atom has within it, and then look at all what an oxygen atom, etc., has in it, and realize that these oxygen and hydrogen atoms and carbon atoms, which is the third aspect, that this oxygen, hydrogen, and carbon come together to create who we are. And think of the immense amount of energies that each one of us has existing from our toes up to our hair. If you would look at that, you would see that we have the equivalent of billions of hydrogen bombs and energy that could be released if we knew how to do it. So within our consciousness, as we potentialize ourselves, we have the ability actually to create and to prevent all kinds of things within our reality that we see. So we are in ourselves a great, incredible being of immense energies, of immense capabilities that is indeed divine. For we are a part of this great divine will, this ultimate consciousness of light that has made everything. So if we look at all of that, and we just see it moving, because basically what energy is about is light in motion. So as we look at our energy, as we look at this great light, most of which we can't see because its frequencies are beyond what our eyes can look at right now, all of this is around us. And if we look at it that way, we begin to see that there's nothing to be afraid of. Because fear is a false emotion. And as we look at all of this around us, we understand that the basic energy, then, that creates all of this is love. And the basic energy that creates love is about divine grace. So as we look at the great dispensations of the divine will, the great grace of creation, we see that we are all a part of that. We have within us a sacred dispensation for all of us to live out our lives, enjoy, and to take all the various aspects that we are and use those energies for the betterment not only of ourselves, but of the entire creation. So this is what the Syrians are very much about. They are very spiritual people. They are all about divine service. And since I was a little kid, when I was among them daily, I learned a great joy, a wonderful, magnificent ability about service. And so to me, the world I lived in was this crazy, weird world, and the other one was like heaven. It was about people in service, this great energy of consciousness, of creation, of taking light and making it into all the things that are needed in order for people to survive in a physical form, and using that energy to create better and greater things throughout this galaxy and throughout all of creation. And so I saw all of that, the love, the light, the divine grace, and I saw a world that I really wanted to be a part of. And when I was in Sirius, this is what you are in the middle of all the time. You are basically swimming in this energy of divine light and love all the time. And what it's about is, who are you? How can I best use the energy and wisdom that I have within me to make everyone around me and the entire universe better, to unfold the divine plan in the way that it was meant to be done, and to be able to actually talk and understand that energy.
Sheldon, I want to shift gears for just a moment. You have a tremendous amount of knowledge about our moon, and I'd love to hear you talk about the history of our moon. In the Disclosure Project video, there is a technician who is named Carl Wolf, and he gives a short speech where he describes seeing photographs from the moon that show towers and mushroom and spherical-shaped buildings, and he saw these photographs